You're watching Canny Gaming. My name's Mark. This is episode 11 of Vranyoskaya. In episode 9, we were developing the city and we were building the industry. So we'd made a start on doing that. We'd built a distillery and we were going to expand that further. But I cut away from that just to discuss two further problems with the city that had been identified during that winter. And I noticed that these were happening in the background as I was doing the development of the industry. I thought I'd better do a new episode to cover those problems, but in the end, I didn't have enough space to fit in the problem with the heating plant. So, episode 10 covered the power plant, the fact that it wasn't producing electricity. And today, we're going to just look at the pollution from the heating plant. Let's get straight on with that. I mentioned about the smoke coming out the heating plant, and one of the first things that I realized in the city, but I've never discussed it in the videos previously. One of the things that I noticed that sort of surprised me was how close this is to the buildings. Now I know I've done it myself, and I've seen other YouTube videos. Kaya did some testing of this and showed that people can operate for many years in areas where there's pollution. But I'm not sure they can operate with the amount of pollution that one of these large heating plants produce. And what I noticed when I played through this offline was that when it's on maximum production over the winter, the pollution builds up and builds up in this area. So let me just we actually have state infrastructure. There it is, state infrastructure. We have a pollution monitoring station. I'm just going to drop that in down here. Let that build. And when we've got that up, we can view the pollution. Now, I'll look at the pollution here. So, the pollution is a sort of brown color, dark red, maybe you might describe it. Obviously, heaviest around the heating plant, and the further away it gets to a sort of an amber yellow color, then to green. So it's green down here near the university, and up here it is the darkest color, close to the heating plant, and that is almost spread to these buildings, and some of the buildings are within the area which is a sort of amberish light brown color. I don't know that I'd describe any of those as yellow, but none of them are very clearly. Maybe around the Lenin statue there, it's starting to get green. But you see, this spreads all the way down through the 8 blocks, and this clears up during the summer if you turn the heating plant off, and then really ramps up in the winter, and over a couple of months the pollution gets more and more on the ground around these buildings, and it's clearly noticeable the further up the building, up the hill you are. So this one, close to the heating plant, if we look at it currently now, it has 67%, which is not good, and it has the average lifespan at 49. You really ought to have your lifespan up at about 65, 70. And then you compare it with the building which is furthest away from the heating plant. The average lifespan there is 57, and its health figure is 77. There's a clear difference the further down the hill you get away from the heating plant. The heating plant is too close to these buildings here, these ones up at the top. How close? Well, if we assume that the ones furthest away are about tolerable, then let me just measure this. So we go to the terrain tools and use the measuring tool, and we click there, and that is 425 meters away. And I think a smaller factory, something like the distillery, at that distance would be fine. But this heating plant belches out so much pollution, which is again very visible in terms of the smoke it produces. It has a clear effect on health. Now, what effect of health does it have? It makes people sick. And it then makes this happen in the hospital. Patients waiting for treatment. So we've got patients who've been treated by the doctors, and then we've got all of these patients waiting to be treated. I think the ones with the red star on them are ones that have been brought in by ambulance, where the people have walked in to see a doctor and waiting to be treated. Now, I think that what happens in the game, but we don't get clear information about this, is they go to the hospital, and they're either brought there by an ambulance or they walk there, and they wait to be treated. And if they wait too long, then there's a good chance they will die. And currently, 17th of February, we've got people dying. I'm almost sure we will have. So we go to the population statistics, and we can see that we've had 86 births, 71 deaths. So actually, the births are still higher than the deaths. So that deaths isn't too bad. If I go to last month, wasn't bad. So that's the sort of figures that we should be getting with an increasing population. So we'd get more births than we would get deaths. We've got a couple of escapes, a couple of people who weren't happy, but nothing to worry about. But now in February, we've started to get to a situation where the deaths have gone up and they're nearly at the same level as the births. And I can assure you that if we do nothing in this city now, I'm just going to let it play on. And let's see. So we've got 91, 92 births, 75 deaths, 77 deaths. So again, the population's still increasing very slightly at the minute. But I think within a week or two, we will get the deaths going crazy. And again, we go to the hospital, and this is because we've got so many people waiting for treatment. And we've got about 70 people waiting for treatment now, sometimes 75, 78, I think it hit a peak there. And I've seen this go over 100 people waiting for treatment. So how can we deal with that? Well, one way we can deal with it is to move these workers out. We have plenty of spare apartments in the buildings down the hill. What we certainly need to do is move the people with university education as far away from the pollution as possible. And the reason for that is we don't want to kill our doctors and our professors. We want them to stay alive, even if people with basic education die. But I think we ought to move some of them out. I think the other thing would be to go here and say to the university and say, right, okay, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to reduce the education level, and I'm going to drop the number of staff and professors here to 20. That should be fine, I think. And I'm going to also say for employees, got to have quite a good level of loyalty. So I want you to have high loyalty for 40, should be enough to be a professor. But I don't care what your loyalty is if you're a doctor. And what I need is the number of doctors here to go up to about 25, 30. And I think what I also then did to solve this problem, or to help with the problem, get over it, again, we've got about, looks like we've got a couple more doctors coming on on average, we're getting 16, 17, 18 doctors. I'd want that up in the 20s. Just gone over 20 now. 24, 29, 30. Right, excellent. That's the sort of doctors we need to make sure all of these patients waiting for treatment are going to get seen. So the numbers have come down and waiting for treatment. Need that to disappear completely. It's also say the worst of the winter's finished now. The snow stopped. The temperature will start increasing soon. That will probably help things, So we're not saying much queues now waiting for treatment, but it's still there. And let's just see what the effect on the population statistics are now. Right, okay, you see the deaths nearly reached the level of the births. And I think, as I said, if we'd done nothing there with the doctors, we would have certainly gone over by now. We would have seen a falling population, and you can easily lose several hundred people in February and March. Once you get past March, the solution to this problem is simply to say, oh, I don't need a heating plant anymore because the weather's improved. It makes sense anyway from 2 points of view. You've got workers here who could go and do other things like work in the distillery or something like that. But the temperature now is still 1 degree C, still not warm enough really to shut the heating off, and not in February. Okay. And now we've got no patients waiting for treatment. We've got treated patients, 24, 25, 30. We've got nobody waiting. So that's why we needed about 30 doctors to be able to cope with this. And I think we'll be fine now because I'd say occasionally, very briefly, some people waiting for treatment. There's some now because the number of doctors has temporarily dropped back down to about 20, but it's going back up again now. So it'll come and go. We're not totally out of the woods yet, but I think it'll be fine. We'll not see a huge drop in population, but this is the sort of thing that it can happen so fast that you don't even notice that it's happened to your population until you think, oh, I'm sure I had over 4,000 people before. What's happened to 500 or 600 people? And then you have to go and pay for immigrants to come and replace them, and it's a constant burden on your finances to have to replace people who die or escape. You don't want people dying unless they're dying of natural causes, of course. You want people to live as long as possible, to have good health and be happy for this reason. So that saves you money. But there's so many factors involved here. But I think that the lesson to take from this is you should not set high polluting industry buildings this close to your residences. So, I believe 400 just over 400 is fine. But I've seen people design cities where they have set things like the heating plant 1,000 meters, in other words, a kilometer away from the residential buildings. Now, I don't think you needed to go that far, and that causes problems with the length of the pipes and things like that. So, where would that be? So, again, I'll bring the measuring tool up. Cancel what I had before. And say click here where well, let's go from Lenin. And if we go out to this road, that is 342 meters. Let me just cancel the last point of the measurement. It'll start from the Lenin. I don't have to click on that again. And I go out to here. That is 414 meters. Or let me just cancel both of the measurements, and I'll go from this corner block next to the prison. Where do I have to go to 400 meters? I need to go a little bit further than that. It's 428 meters. So you see the sort of position where it would have to be. We're basically talking, it must be on the other side of this road. It can't be on the side of the road closest to the apartment blocks. It must be on the other side of the road, and maybe not even right up to the road, to be about 400 meters. And that is the absolute minimum that you could probably get away with. And you still got to be careful. Still got to make sure you've got enough doctors in your city, which means you've got to have enough educated workers. And you have to make sure that you switch this off in the summer, because it produces so much pollution. You need to stop that pollution happening for 6 months of the year. So let me just cancel that. So I think at some stage we actually would need to demolish this heating plant, rebuild it further away. And I don't think it's too bad to do it. You could say, I think what I would do is I would replace it with, is it one of these? That's the small heat plant, so it must be this. Yeah, that's it. So I think I would put it here, and actually that's one of the reasons why I've put the power lines in, because I wanted to make sure that it, if I built it here, it would be in the way of the power lines. I wanted to say where the power lines would be, so I can position it accordingly. And I think that's. Oh, actually, we see the red lines. It just reaches the kindergartens and the schools, and I can't see the numbers on them, but I think that is 388 meters. See, none of it reaches to the buildings. Oh, there's a one that reaches to the apartments. So I think that sort of position would be fine. And we wouldn't have to totally redo all of the heating pipes. We'd be reconnecting into the heating pipes that are here and here. But I think that is necessary to have to do that. So I'm going to cut the video there. My channel's Canny Gaming, and I'm Mark. Before I'm out of here, just remind you to like, comment and subscribe. Feel free to comment on the videos and give me feedback, ask me questions, tell me where I've gone wrong. Whatever it is, I'm open to it. Anyway, my name's Mark and I'm out of here.